Good afternoon. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Revelot Terra Fume Army Sand Bronze. This watch is available from Revelot.com for $333, which is €321. Revelot are a well-established microbrand. They were founded in 2017 and they're based in Malaysia. So firstly, let's look at the box that the watch comes in, and then I'll talk you through the specifications of the piece. So the watch comes in this black cardboard watch box. One withdraws the drawer from the sleeve, which is a snug fit, and as you can see, the drawer is finished in a contrasting gilt and black effect, and the interior is upholstered with a contrasting cream velour fabric. Two pockets, and in the left hand pocket the watch sits on a padded pillow cushion which is upholstered with cream velour fabric to a good standard. Now I'm going to be critical of this because Revelot have taken the cost cutting measure of using a cardboard watch box in order to maximise profit margin per piece. Cardboard watch boxes like this are acceptable in the low tier at the €100 price point, but this is a €321 price point piece in the low tier. I would like to see Revelot upgrade this to a PU leather or vinyl travel case, or alternatively a plastic watch box which is vinyl coated, because that is appropriate at this price point. With regards to the items, the watch comes with this card, and I'm pleased to report that the Terra Fume Army Sand Bronze piece we're looking at is covered by a 2-year international warranty, which is very good. Often at this price point in the low tier, one expects 12 months of warranty, so to get 2 years of warranty is very good. Now, as an alternative to a printed leaflet, owner's instruction manual, or a booklet, it simply has 2 QR codes, one for the owner's instructions and one for the warranty terms and conditions. So you can scan the QR codes with your Android or iPhone and download the owner's instruction manual and also the warranty information. Many brands in the low tier are using this as a method, as an alternative to printing out booklets and leaflets and printing plastic warranty cards. This is subjective, but personally I prefer to see a booklet or leaflet warranty card, and I also like to see a warranty card made from plastic which is printed, but some collectors like the convenience of QR codes which you can simply scan with your iPhone or Android. And lastly, you also get this Revelot tag, and on the reverse it has the barcode and reference number of the piece, the Terra Fume Army Sand Bronze. So with regards to the specifications of the piece, we have a 38mm case diameter. We have a lug-to-lug measurement of 44mm, a thickness of 11.7mm, and a lug width of 20mm. The FKM fluoro rubber strap is coated on the top side with sailcloth weave green fabric, and it tapers from 20mm at the lugs down to the bronze buckle and tang. The bronze buckle and tang is a nice heavy gauge, and it's engraved with high definition engraving with the Revelot emblem. Nice finishing to it, to the heavy gauge of bronze buckle. It's going to be durable and robust because of the heavy gauge. It's got nice mirror polished bevels which are mirror polished to a good standard, and that contrasts very well with the luster of the brushed satin finishing to the top side, underside and flanks. So it's a nice aesthetic. It gives it a military issued or tool watch aesthetic rather than a dress piece aesthetic due to the large proportions and the heavy gauge of the bronze buckle. We have a flat boxed top hat profile to the crystal, as you can see. So although it does have a boxed top hat profile to it, rather than being double domed, it's flat on the top side and the underside. And the benefit of it being flat rather than double domed is it reduces the magnification and distortion effect. One detail I like is the rehort beneath the boxed flat sapphire crystal is very slim. It's not a deep rehort, and that means the handset and also the dial sit very close to the underside of the crystal, so the legibility and the clarity is very good. So this is a Fume version of the Terra, and what that means is the dial is graduated. The Fume dial means it's lighter in the centre and it graduates to a darker green at the circumference. We've got a rail track chaptering which is printed in contrasting white, and the rail track chaptering contrasts very well with the Fume dial. Quality of the printing on the dial in white paint is very good. The Revelot emblem, Revelot and Terra at 12 o'clock are nice and crisp and high definition. The font isn't too thick and blurry. It's very sharp, and they deserve credit because it is difficult to print in high definition on a textured dial. Revelot call this a gravel textured dial to it, and it does have that textured finish. When you tilt the piece at an oblique angle, you can see it's not smooth as per a sunburst dial or enamel dial. It does have a matte finish to the textured dial. Also has a nice 3D effect because the sub-dial at 6 o'clock for the seconds is recessed into the main dial, and it has a darker green tone, so it contrasts very well. The quality of the printing to the chaptering of the seconds on the sub-dial and the Arabic numerals is very sharp and high definition. So quality of the white paint printing on the Fume dial is very good. Now, with regards to the Arabic numerals, they are applied and they're blocks of C3 superluminova. Rather than just printing 5 to 6 layers of C3, they've actually applied the Arabic numerals. They are made from blocks of C3. So I'm looking forward to the Lume test and testing the performance. The hands are very well executed. The proportions are correct. If you look at the tip of the minute hand, you can see it extends all the way to the white minute ticks on the rail track chaptering. The hour hand is also correctly proportioned because it extends all the way to the applied Arabic numerals, which are blocks of C3. So proportions of the hands are good. The other detail I like is the quality of the finishing to the hands because they're faceted. They're not just flat hands. They have facets. So the edges are mirror polished, which are very aesthetically pleasing. The centre section of the hands are brushed satin finished longitudinally, and they catch the light, so the contrast is very good. And as I've detailed, the benefit of this piece is that it has a very shallow rehorts, which is made from bronze, and you can see just how slender it is. So the applied Arabic numerals on the Fume dial and also the handset are very close to the crystal. The legibility and the clarity is outstanding. With regards to the bezel, like the case, it's made from bronze, and they've mirror polished the chamfer to the top edge, so it's very aesthetically pleasing but also very well finished. No sharp edges to the flat profile to the bezel, and the edge of it is vertically brushed satin finished, and the brushed satin finishing is very high quality. Now, interesting choice of finishing to the angular case and also the angular lugs, because on the flanks we have vertical brushed satin finishing, which marks a refreshing change from the longitudinal brushed satin finishing or mirror polishing one often sees on flanks to cases. So the vertical brushed satin finishing to the bronze catches the light and refracts it, and it's very well done. It's nice fine grained finish to the vertical brushing, and that contrasts very well with the longitudinal brushed satin finishing to the tops of the lugs. Also, good attention to detail, because if you look at the internals of the lugs, they look like lyre or twisted lugs on the internal side because they've mirror polished the corners on the inside, and this is expensive to do. It adds significant production costs and also time in production, and the slight mirror polishing to the corners of the internals of the lugs complements the mirror polished chamfer to the bezel, so it's a very well finished angular case. The undercut to the flanks of the case is nice and deburred, so no sharp edges, and it doesn't have sharp tips to the corners of the 4 lugs. On the crown side, you can see it has a knurled crown, which has a conical profile to it, which looks like a Flieger crown. Nice proportions to it. It's very grippy and tactile due to the knurl finish. The quality of the machining to the knurls on the crown is very good. It's nice and sharp, but they've also deburred and chamfered it very well, so there's no sharp tips to the fluted teeth, and they've also engraved it to a good standard and inlaid the engraving with C3, and so it's a fully lumed crown, as we'll test in the Lume test, and that adds interest to it. This is the first time I've seen a bronze crown which is engraved and inlaid with C3, so it's unusual to see a bronze piece with a lumed crown. Now, with regards to the strap, it's made from FKM fluoro rubber, and the top side is coated with sailcloth, and it's made from nylon weave, as you can see, stitched around the perimeter. Has a nice olive green tone to it, and that complements the Fume dial, because in the centre it's a light green avocado colour, but then it graduates to the circumference to a dark green, which matches the dark green of the strap. I personally think this piece would look more aesthetically pleasing on a dark green leather strap, but however, this is subjective. Some collectors might like the textured finish of the sailcloth weave woven nylon fabric, and of course the practicality of it being FKM rubber, because it dries out very quickly if it gets wet. So let's look at the underside of the strap. There are 2 FKM fluoro rubber keepers, and they both slide. The first one isn't fixed, so you can adjust the 2 keepers up and down the strap to get the perfect position. Let's look at the underside of it. So as you can see, the underside is textured, it's embossed with fluoro rubber, and also it details the taper 20 to 18 millimeters, plenty of holes which have a slotted shape to them to get the fit. Now, this strap has enough holes in it to fit a minimum 6-inch size up to 7.5 inches. As I'll show you in the wrist shot, I can just fit it on my 8-inch wrist. I can engage the end of the strap just into the two keepers, but really the maximum length this strap will fit is a 7.5 inch. So there's enough holes to fit a 6 to 7.5 inch, but if you have a larger 8-inch or above wrist, you're going to need a longer strap, so that's something to bear in mind. Now if you look at the other side, the buckle and tang side, you can see again it's embossed with fluoro rubber and it is textured finish to it. The textured finish does feel smooth enough not to be irritable. It does feel comfortable against the wrist, but the thing to note is if you look at the profile of it, the thickness, it does taper in thickness from the spring bars down to the buckle and tang end, but it's very stiff. Now with FKM fluoro rubber straps, they do feel stiffer than silicone rubber, and that's something to bear in mind. They do take more breaking in, but I'm confident with daily wear this is going to become more soft and supple, but initially it does feel very stiff due to the thickness, especially at the spring bar end, but as you get down to the buckle and tang end and the holes, it does feel more flexible. It's not as comfortable and supple as a silicone rubber strap. I think a leather strap would really enhance the comfort level. On a positive note, Revelot have made the correct decision by using quick release stainless steel spring bars rather than standard spring bars, and that negates the need for using a spring bar tool in order to remove the strap and fit an alternative. The problem with bronze cases with thick straps like this, it's difficult to get a spring bar tool in between the edge of the internals of the lugs and also the edge of the strap. It's difficult to compress an FKM rubber strap like this. They're not as soft and supple as a silicone rubber strap, for example. And the risk of that is sometimes you can scuff and scratch the bronze lugs. So by using quick release spring bars, you can easily remove the strap without having to use a spring bar tool. You're not going to dent or scuff and scratch the bronze lugs, which of course are softer than 316L grade stainless steel. So let's look at the case back. Solid 316L grade stainless steel. It provides an effective hermetic seal to 100 meters, which is strong specification for a daily wear piece. So this is very impressive because this is a daily wear piece. We're not looking at a dive watch, and therefore 100 meters is excessive specification. It could have used 50 meters, for example. So 100 is good. Screw down case back is also good rather than the cost-cutting measure of a pressed on case back. It's concentric CNC lathe tool machined. So I like the concentric finishing because it refracts the light. The centre is engraved with the Revelot emblem with high definition engraving, and it has a matte bead blasted effect, so it's very aesthetically pleasing. The engraving is nicely polished. It doesn't have any sharp edges to the engraved emblem. The circumference is also matte bead blasted effect, and we have the engraved specification of the piece and also the reference number. The milled slots are well machined. They've been deburred very well, so no sharp edges to the milled slots in the case back. And also I like that it's a flat profile. It's not a bubble back case back. It's the kind of case back one would expect on a manual wind or a quartz powered piece. It's got that nice flat centre section. So the benefit of it being low profile and flat rather than a bubble back profile is this has a nice snug fit to the wrist, and it is only 11.7 millimeters, which is impressive because it does have a boxed top hat crystal which adds 2 millimeters of thickness to the piece. So good quality case back, well machined. And as I've detailed, the tips of the lugs have nice chamfers, so there's no sharp corners to the tips of the lugs, and the undercuts to the flanks of the case are deburred and chamfered very well. So the case finishing is 10 out of 10. Right, so let's test the screw down crown execution. Solid bronze fluted crown, which is Flieger style in a conical profile to it, and as I've detailed, chamfered and deburred very well. It's very grippy and tactile, nice large proportion to it, so you can get good purchase with your index finger and thumb. Now it feels silky smooth. This is sublime screw down crown execution. Minimal number of turns required to fully unscrew it, and it is very smooth. So perfect interface between the internal thread of the bronze crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. The threads mesh very well. They feel silky smooth. It's sublime. Now, when it's unscrewed, we're in the manual wind position, so one can manually wind the Seagull caliber ST17 automatic to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. Nice light resistance to the gearing. You can feel the tension in the mainspring gradually building up, to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. In terms of resistance to the gearing and also the tension in the mainspring, it feels much lighter than manually winding a Seiko NH35A, which you'll be familiar with, or a Solita SW200-1 respectively. So very light resistance to the gearing, it's a low friction movement. And also the mainspring, you can feel the tension building up. It does feel very smooth to manually wind. It's an absolute pleasure to manually wind the Seagull Caliber ST17. Pulling it out to the first click position is the final click position. There's no date complication. We don't have a phantom date setting position, which is good. But the negative of the Caliber ST17 is it does not hack. If you look at the subdial for the seconds, you can see that it's continuing to run even though we're in the time setting position. So you cannot hack the Seagull Caliber ST17 to set the time precisely to the second. So that's something to bear in mind. One could consider it to be a negative, the lack of hacking. You're not able to hack the second hand and stop the movement dead. The second hand will continue to run regardless. But it does feel nice and light. Minimal resistance in the gearing. It's a low friction movement. It has 20 joules and it does feel very smooth, both clockwise and anti-clockwise. So it does feel nice to set the time. Now, there is some backplay, and that's a characteristic of the Caliber ST17 that you have to get used to. But once you've become accustomed to taking up the slack, it does feel okay. But for example, when I rotate the knurled crown, clockwise and anti-clockwise, like so, you can see the minute hand isn't responding immediately. There's significant backplay in it, so you really have to rotate it clockwise and anti-clockwise with a good turn in order to take up that slack in the gearing. Because when you rotate it at small amounts, like so, the minute hand doesn't move. You have to really rotate it. So you have to get accustomed to taking up the slack. That just is something you have to put up with the Caliber ST17, the backplay. Pushing it back in, it's got a nice positive click, and let's test screwing it back down. Instant thread pickup, perfect interface between the internal crown of the bronze crown and the external thread of the stainless steel crown tube. 100 meters is very strong specification. They could have used a push-pull crown and 50 meters of water resistance, but 100 is very strong specification, and also it's good to get a screw-down crown on a daily wear piece. So sublime screw-down crown execution, silky smooth. They deserve credit for it. Now let's do a wrist shot, and we'll see how it fits on my 8-inch wrist. Now, thing to note is, as I've detailed, this strap will fit a maximum of a 7.5-inch wrist. I will show you, I can just engage the end of the FKM fluoro rubber strap with the two sliding keepers, but it's just a fraction too short. If this were half an inch longer, it would suffice. So just to bear in mind, 7.5 inches really is the maximum. I can just engage the end of it in the two keepers. So 8 is the ultimate. But I can just slide an index finger beneath the buckle and tang at all times. So really 6 to 7.5 is the wrist size for this. If you have an 8-inch plus wrist size, you're going to need to fit an alternative strap. And that's a shame because it does have a very nice bronze heavy gauge buckle and tang, which is very aesthetically pleasing with the mirror polished bevel and also the emblem engraved. So it's a shame to sacrifice the buckle and tang, but you're going to have to if you have an 8-inch plus wrist. Now, in terms of wrist presence, this is 38mm, and it does surprisingly give good wrist presence, partly due to the large knurled crown, which is Flieger style. It does wear more like a 39 or a 40mm due to the large crown. So although it's 38, it does give significant wrist presence. The thing that most impresses me about it, and it's something I really like, is it's not a tall piece. I expected this to be in excess of 13mm due to the 2mm tall boxed top hat profile crystal, which has a flat profile to the top, but you can see it's got a boxed top hat profile to it. But this is only 11.7. Now, the sweet spot is anything below 13mm will easily slip beneath a shirt cuff if you wear business shirts. So it's a practical daily wear piece because it's only 11.7 and it does have 100 meters of hermetic seal. So 2mm thick crystal is very aesthetically pleasing, but it has a nice flat case back rather than a bubble back case back. And you can see how snug the angular lugs, they angle around the wrist. It doesn't sit on top of the wrist like a slab of solid bronze. So although it's only 38, it does wear more like a 39 or a 40. And I like that it's low profile at 11.7. It does have a short, compact lug-to-lug measurement, and this is something that if you have a smaller wrist of 6 to 7 inches, you will appreciate the compact lug-to-lug. It's only 44 millimeters. Now, in my previous reviews, I often refer to 48 millimeters as being the sweet spot, regardless of whether you have a 6 to 7 inch wrist or a 7 to 8 inch wrist. Respectfully, 48 is the perfect lug-to-lug. At 44 millimeters lug-to-lug, it is a compact case, it's very short, so I would say it's best suited if you're a collector with a 6 to 7 inch wrist. If you have a larger wrist of 7 to 8 inches, you'll find maybe 44 is just slightly too short, but it does wrap around the wrist due to the angled down lugs. They don't project too far and too straight, they do angled downwards, so it does have a very snug fit beneath the angular lugs, and so therefore the end of the FKM rubber strap is a snug fit to the wrist, and it does work very well. The taper 20 to 18 looks good, and I like the contrast of the sailcloth woven nylon top to the FKM rubber strap. The olive green tone to it does match the circumference of the Fume dial very well. Legibility is good. I like the applied block C3 Superlume Nova Arabic numerals, and they contrast very well with the green graduated Fume dial. Also, I like the textured finish, which is gravel texture finish, because it adds interest to the dial. The dial has a real 3D effect, and of course the benefit is the shallow rehorts means the legibility and the clarity is very good. The handset and also the dial sit very close to the underside of the sapphire crystal. We're not looking at a very deep rehort. So very nicely proportioned, and I like the 20 to 18 taper on the strap and also the large bronze buckle. So good looking piece. Now the thing to note is this is only 86 grams, which is surprising because bronze case pieces are normally very heavy, and this is only 86. I would expect this to be over 90 grams at the 38 millimeter diameter, but it really does feel very light and weightless on wrist. So the comfort level is good, the feel good factor is good, it's aesthetically pleasing, and I like when you view it at an oblique angle, you can see the crystal with the box top hat profile. The edge of it catches the light, and it also complements the bezel because it's mirror polished. So I like the way it catches the light, and also the mirror polished facets on the handset catch the light. So the legibility is good, but it also looks very good too. So comfortable piece to wear due to the lack of heft at only 86 grams, and it is a compact case and it wraps around the wrist very well with the angular lugs. So just bear with me, I'll undo the tight strap and do it back up again, and then we'll do a lume test. One detail I've just noticed now, which I want to show you, is good attention to detail. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. They've actually engraved the Revelot logo in text on the underside of the buckle and tang, as well as on the top side we have the emblem engraved. So again, that increases production cost, but adds to the quality feel of it, and I've just noticed it now during the review, so I wanted to show it to you. Good attention to detail and good finishing. So I'll just do the strap back up and then we'll do the lume test. Now I've got high expectations of this because it uses blocks of C3 for the Arabic numerals. They're not printed, they're actually applied. So as always, I'm going to use my 100 UV LED torch to charge it up to the absolute peak. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, it has not disappointed. This has actually exceeded my expectations. This is the benefit of using blocks of C3 Superlume Nova. We're not looking at 5 to 6 layers of printed Arabic numerals. These blocks, as you can see, have a 3D effect. Now, when I tilt the piece at an oblique angle, just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. You can see just how 3D they are. They're really thick, and it adds interest to the dial, but the other thing is the performance is stellar. This is just incredible. It actually exceeds 5 to 6 layers of performance due to the 3D effect of the blocks. Just incredible. The exciter in the C3 is some of the best I've seen. Now, the thing I like about it is in daylight conditions, the handset and the Arabic numerals, they do match very well. They have a white tone to them, which is good. They contrast very well with the Fume dial, which is graduated from an avocado green in the centre to an olive green at the circumference. So the contrast of the handset against the Fume textured dial is very good. But in the dark, we've also got a good colour tone match because the green tone of the C3 Arabic numerals and the handset matches perfectly. It doesn't look darker on the block applied Arabic numerals, and it doesn't look darker on the handset. They're perfectly matched. The other thing I really like is if you look at the subdial at 6 o'clock, they fully loomed the subdial hand, and also the second ticks on the subdial are fully loomed as well, and they're performing very well because you can actually see the subdial second hand sweeping around in the subdial. And this is something one doesn't often see in the low tier. They do not loom the second subdial at 6 o'clock, and they don't loom the second hand, but it actually works very well because you can see the second hand sweeping around the subdial. I like the symmetry of the dial with the subdial at 6 o'clock and the lack of a date complication because we have large Arabic numerals which are applied, and I like the symmetry of them. So performance of the blocks of C3 Arabic numerals are fantastic, and as you can see, fantastic 3D effect when you tilt the piece at an oblique angle. So legibility and clarity of the crystal is very good. You can clearly read the time in the dark, and you can orientate the dial very quickly with the large 12 Arabic numerals at 12 o'clock. Also, you can easily differentiate between the minute and hour hand because the proportions are very good. The minute hand is a lot longer than the hour hand, so you can see it's extending all the way to the minute ticks on the chapter ring. So the legibility is good, the clarity is good, I like the symmetry of it, and I like the 3D effect of the blocks. And definitely the blocks of C3 on the Arabic numerals, they perform better than 5 to 6 layers due to the depth. Lovely 3D effect. Fantastic performance, and Revelot deserve full credit for not cutting any corners with regards to the quality C3 superlumen over they're using on the Terra. Right, so let's discuss the movement used. So this uses the Seagull caliber ST17, which is made in China. It's an automatic. The architecture of the ST17 is based upon its predecessor, the ST16, so very similar architecture. And there are 3 versions of the ST17. This one is the 20 joule version of it, and it runs at 21,600 vibrations per hour and a frequency of 3 Hz. It's been in service since 2001, so at this stage in 2025, it is a reliable, well-proven workhorse caliber. It has hand winding, but the negative is it does not have hacking, and as I've demonstrated, when I unscrewed the crown and pulled it out to the time setting position, I could not hack the movement. That's the negative of the ST17. You cannot hack it to set the time precisely to the second. Has a 40-hour power reserve, which is perfectly acceptable. The stated accuracy of the caliber ST17 is plus or minus 30 seconds per day, so a rather wide accuracy range. Now that's the negative of the ST17, the wide accuracy range. Plus or minus 30 is not accurate. But however, there's something I need to explain about that. They can be regulated to much better than plus or minus 30 seconds per day. The ST17 performs very well when it's fully wound to its maximum 40-hour power reserve. So, for example, you can regulate an ST17 to plus or minus 5 seconds per day accuracy when it's fully wound to 40 hours. However, when the power reserve depletes as the mainspring becomes exhausted, for example, when it drops below 10 hours of power reserve left on the mainspring, the accuracy runs out wildly. So it will go from plus or minus 5 seconds to plus or minus 10 seconds to plus or minus 15 seconds and so on as the mainspring unwinds and it depletes power reserve. So when it's fully wound, very accurate, but then when it's exhausted, it becomes more inaccurate. Now, this one has been well regulated. It's running at plus 10 seconds per day, and plus 10 is well within the stated plus or minus 30 seconds per day. But however, that's plus 10 when it's fully wound to its 40 hours. In reality, you're not going to be wearing this on a daily basis with 40 hours. If you wear it for 8 to 12 hours per day, that will keep it charged up. Alternatively, you can unscrew the crown and manually wind it 40 clockwise turns. That will top it up to its maximum 40 hours, and therefore it will remain accurate until it becomes depleted to 20 hours, down to 10 hours, and so on. Then you'll find it becomes more inaccurate. And there's nothing you can do about that. That's just the characteristic or the negative of the ST17. They are accurate at 40 hours, but they are inaccurate below 10 hours, for example. Plus 10 is acceptable. You can regulate them in 5 positions to plus or minus 5, but really that's only dependent on it having its maximum power reserve. And in practice, you'll be wearing it with less than 20 hours on a daily basis, and therefore the accuracy will typically be plus or minus 15 to plus or minus 20, for example. Something to bear in mind, it's not a very accurate movement, and the lack of hacking is a negative. But on a positive note, there's no date complication and therefore no phantom date setting position on the crown. You simply have one click to set the time. That's it. So that's the benefit. There's one other negative I want you to be aware of with the caliber ST17. It's got a loud rotor. Now, to put the sound of it into perspective, it's similar to the noisy rotor you get on a Miyota caliber 8000 series, such as the 8215, which you'll all be familiar with. Miyota 8215s have a noisy rotor. You can hear the rotor spinning round and winding clockwise and anti-clockwise. The ST17 does have a similar noisy rotor, so when it's on wrist and you shake the piece, you can hear the rotor spinning clockwise and anti-clockwise. It's audible. To put it into perspective, it's not as quiet as a Seiko NH35A or a Miyota caliber 9015, for example. They are quieter. They have a nice quiet rotor in comparison to a Miyota 8215. So the ST17 does have a noisy rotor. That's something to bear in mind if you like a quiet piece. But reliable, well-proven workhorse movement, and it's been in service since 2001 with no reliability issues reported. They are a robust movement. So last I'll summarise the piece. What do I think of it overall? Well, when I'm considering reviewing a watch on my channel, the watch should meet two criteria. It should be both excellent quality and excellent value at the respective price point. Now I've just remembered I didn't show you the fully lumed crown in the lume test. So while I'm summarising it, I'll charge that up and then I'll tell you what I think of it. Right, so that's now fully charged, and as you can see, stellar performance like the dial, because the C3 Super Luminova inlay is very good. And of course, again, the dial is glowing like a torch. It's incredible. The blocks of C3 Arabic numerals are fantastic. Nice to get that detail. As you can see, the emblem is engraved. Just bear with me, I'll get the camera to focus on it. Very good performance, good potency of the exciter. So, I'm going to declare it good quality, but I'm going to say the value is okay. This does face some stiff competition at €321. Yes, the specification is strong because it's 100 meters, screw down crown, bronze is expensive, and the quality of the dial execution is high quality, the quality of the hand finishing is high quality, and the blocks of C3 Arabic numerals, stellar performance. So the quality of the C3 they're using is outstanding. Finishing is very good throughout. To the head of the piece, the bezel and the case back, also the buckle and tang. But I think there's room for improvement with regards to the FKM rubber strap. At this price point, one would expect a leather strap, not FKM with sailcloth, nylon woven fabric. So I'm going to say good quality, but I'm going to say value is okay. I can't say good value, I can't say excellent value at €321. It is expensive. I would expect a higher grade of movement rather than the Seagull caliber ST17 at this price point. The ST17 is okay at pieces that are below €200, but when one gets to €321 in the low tier, it has to be a higher grade of movement to be good quality and good value, or excellent quality and excellent value. So I'm going to declare it good quality, and I'm going to declare the value okay. I hope you've enjoyed my review of the Revelot Terra Fume Army Sand Bronze. Please feel free to post your own comments below the video. Thank you for watching.